My name is Olivia Parker. I'm 29 years old, and 2 days before Christmas, I stepped off a 10-hour travel day from New York straight into the dumbest ambush my family has ever tried to pull on me. I barely had my suitcase up the front steps when my mom yanked open the door. No hello. No, you made it. Just this flat, rehearsed line. You'll babysit your sister's kids. We're going on a family trip. She was already turning away, like the decision had been made weeks ago, and I was just another piece of luggage being dropped where it belonged. My sister appeared in the hallway, juggling 4 kids in little puffy jackets, cheeks flushed, eyes wild with pre-vacation hype. She grinned at them and said, loud enough for the whole block to hear, "Don't wipe your snot on her, kids." They giggled, actually leaned in to smear their faces on my coat, while my mom laughed like it was peak comedy. 10 hours of airports and recycled air, thousands of dollars in last-minute tickets and gifts. And I was the punchline. I didn't reach for a hug. I didn't even step fully inside. I just stood there on the threshold, hand still on my suitcase handle, and felt that familiar switch flip in my chest, the one that always comes right before I pay for something they can't afford or fix a problem I didn't cause. Only this time, I'd come prepared for a different role. I smiled, slow and small and wrong, and said, "You really should have checked your email before you said that." My mom's smile twitched. My sister rolled her eyes. "Liv, don't start. We have a flight in 3 hours." The kids were chanting something about snow and hot chocolate. Under all of that noise, one thought cut through my head like glass. Why am I always the only one expected to sacrifice, and no one even bothers to ask if I'm okay with it? My mom's eyes narrowed as she asked, "What did you do?" And in that second, I knew this was the moment everything would finally snap. Before I tell you what he said, and what happened after I walked out, tell me, what time is it for you right now? And where are you watching from? I'm curious to see how far this story will travel. What I actually said was simple. I'm not staying to babysit, and you might want to open your reservation app before you start loading the car. My mom, Karen, blinked like I'd spoken another language. My sister Jenna let out this sharp little laugh, shoved a diaper bag into my arms, and said, "You're hilarious, Olivia. Guys, say hi to Aunt Liv. She's your Christmas present." 4 kids barreled into me, 9, 7, 4, and a toddler on a hip, sticky hands grabbing, winter boots kicking my shins. Behind them, Karen already had her rolling suitcase by the door, coat on, purse zipped, like she was a celebrity on her way to the airport and I was the hired help. "Mom," I said, lowering my voice, "I didn't fly across the country to be your free nanny while you go to Breckenridge." She froze. "How do you know where we're going?" she snapped. I shrugged. "You texted me the Airbnb link by accident instead of Jenna, 2 weeks ago." I watched the realization crawl over her face. And, since the confirmation came through on the card with my name on it, I did what I always do when my card is involved. Jenna scoffed. "Checked every little thing like a control freak?" "No," I said. "I canceled it 3 days ago." For a full heartbeat, nobody breathed. Then Jenna fumbled for her phone, thumb flying over the Breckenridge Lodge app. I could see the screen reflected in her wide eyes. "Reservation canceled. Refund processed." Karen stepped closer, voice dropping into that dangerous shaking register. "Olivia, tell me you're joking." I remembered every favor over the last 5 years. Refinancing their Phoenix house with my credit because theirs was wrecked, putting the utilities in my name just for a couple months, Venmoing Jenna rent because daycare is so expensive, paying for groceries from New York at 2 a.m. so my nieces and nephews wouldn't eat ramen again. I remembered wiring money last spring instead of going on a trip with friends, because Karen had called crying about the mortgage. All those little helps that added up to me silently funding their entire life, while I lived like a grad student in Manhattan. "You didn't read the last few statements, did you?" I asked. Karen's jaw clenched. "I've been paying that card off for you, remember?" I continued. "Along with the house, the power, the internet, Jenna's minivan payment. You gave me the login. You signed everything over because I was the responsible one. So no, I'm not joking. I took my name off your vacation." The 7-year-old tugged my sleeve. "Are we not going to the snow, Aunt Liv?" Behind him, the 9-year-old whined. "We told our friends we were going skiing." Their little faces tilted up for answers they should have been getting from their mother, not from the walking wallet they call aunt. "You're not going anywhere with me in charge," I said gently. "You're not my responsibility." I turned back to Jenna. "You never asked if I was okay missing work for a week, or if I wanted to fly out. You and Mom just decided I'd drop everything because my life must look flexible to you." In my head, a montage flashed. Last Thanksgiving, when I skipped a firm retreat to come home and help out, only to spend 4 days cooking and babysitting while Jenna went Black Friday shopping and Karen bragged about her New York lawyer daughter funding the turkey. The 4th of July before that, when my bonus check went straight to their overdue property taxes instead of into my own savings. If I had said no even once back then, if I'd walked away instead of wiring money, where would I be right now? On a beach in Mexico? In my own condo instead of a shoebox rental? Maybe not here, standing in a Phoenix doorway being handed 4 kids like a free daycare center. The 4-year-old stomped. "We want to go outside." She ran toward the yard in her little sneakers, no hat, no gloves, December wind slicing down the street. "No," I said sharply, catching her hood. "You're not going anywhere until someone who actually lives here takes responsibility." Her lower lip trembled. The toddler started to cry in sympathy. Jenna threw her hands up. "See what you did? Why are you being so dramatic? It's 1 week, Liv. You fly first class all the time. You'll survive playing house with your nieces and nephews." I looked from Karen's clenched jaw to Jenna's flaring nostrils and felt that cold, steady place in me settle. "I don't fly first class," I said. "I fly economy. Then I send the upgrade money to you." Karen hissed. "You can't just cancel our trip, Olivia. We already checked in. The flights, the lift tickets." "About those flights," I interrupted. "You'll want to check your airline app too." Jenna tapped furiously, then went still. "Why does it say these credits are in the name Olivia Parker?" she whispered. "Because I paid for them," I replied. "And because I'm done being the default option. I didn't come here to babysit. I came here to stop." Karen's face went white, then red. "You ungrateful," she started, but she didn't get to finish. The doorbell rang, a calm, precise chime that cut through the chaos. Jenna frowned, glancing at the clock. "Who the hell is that? We're not expecting anyone." "You're not," I said, sliding the diaper bag back into Jenna's stunned hands. "I am." As the bell rang a second time, louder this round, a strange stillness settled over the entryway. This, I thought, as my mom's hand hovered over the doorknob, is the moment everything changes. Karen swung the door open with the brittle politeness she saves for strangers, and there she was. A woman in her early 40s, dark blazer over jeans, state-issued badge on a lanyard, clipboard tucked under one arm. "Good afternoon, I'm Sarah Miller with Child Protective Services," she said, offering a professional smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "We spoke on the phone about a follow-up visit?" Karen actually took a step back. "There must be some mistake," she stammered. "We didn't call." "I did," I said, stepping into Sarah's line of sight. "I'm Olivia, their aunt. I flew in from New York." Sarah's gaze flicked over my suitcase, the cluster of kids half-zipped into coats, Karen's wheeled luggage, the chaos of half-packed bags and abandoned snacks on the floor. In that one sweep, I watched her catalog the scene the way I'd been cataloging my family my entire life. "Is now still a good time?" she asked smoothly. Jenna's voice knifed through the air. Olivia, what did you do? The last time I'd really looked at their lives without trying to fix anything for them was 3 weeks ago, on a glitchy FaceTime call. I'd answered from my firm's conference room, late at night. Stacks of contracts on the table, my blouse wrinkled and my brain fried. On their end, the camera was propped on a kitchen counter. 2 of the kids were in the backyard in t-shirts, even though I could see the frost on the grass, one of them barefoot. The toddler in a sagging diaper wandering dangerously close to the pool gate that never actually latched. Jenna was on the porch with a glass of wine, scrolling TikTok while one of the boys stood at the sliding glass door sobbing because his hands were red and numb. "Can you get inside?" I'd asked him gently. "Ask Mommy to put your coat on." He'd just pressed his wet face to the glass, leaving a streak, while Jenna snapped, "He's fine, Liv. They're building character. Anyway, can you send me $200 for Christmas outfits?" I'd ended that call and stared at my own reflection in the black screen, this exhausted woman who moved heaven and earth for people who couldn't be bothered to zip a jacket. Then I'd pulled up the state hotline and made a report. Not because I thought my sister was a monster, but because the pattern was clear. The kids were afterthoughts whenever material comfort or her social life competed. I provided the dates, the screenshots, the texts where she bragged about free babysitting at mom's, gonna party this weekend. CPS opened a quiet file, told me they'd likely start with a home visit. No drama unless they saw a serious problem. They'd asked when both the kids and the primary caregivers would definitely be home. "The holidays," I'd said. "They'll all be there then." Now, standing in the doorway with Sarah, my heart hammered against my ribs. But it wasn't fear. It was the adrenaline that hits when someone finally steps between you and a moving train you've been holding back with your bare hands. "This is ridiculous," Karen muttered, blocking the entrance. "We take good care of our grandchildren. We're about to take them on a ski trip, for God's sake." Sarah's smile cooled by a few degrees. "That's exactly why I'm here today, ma'am. We like to see how children are cared for in day-to-day life, not just when everything is picture perfect. It won't take long. Can I come in?" Jenna hissed at me under her breath. "If anything happens because of this, Olivia, I swear." I looked straight at her and, just loud enough for Sarah to hear, said, "Nothing's going to happen if everything is as safe and stable as you keep telling me it is, right?" Sarah stepped inside, her eyes taking in the sink full of dishes crusted with last night's dinner, the half-empty wine bottles on the counter at noon, the space heater too close to a pile of laundry, the toddler sagging against Jenna's shoulder with a sucker stuck to his hair. I didn't need to explain. The house spoke fluently. "Where are the children's rooms?" Sarah asked. "I'd like to see where they sleep. What kind of supervision they have." Karen jumped in. "We were just leaving for the airport, so things are a little messy, but usually Olivia is here," Jenna snapped, jerking her chin at me. "She's always willing to help. She just picked today to have a meltdown." Sarah glanced at me. "Do you live here full-time?" "No," I said. "I live in New York. I'm an associate at a law firm. I pay their mortgage, their utilities, the car Jenna drives, and most of the groceries. I'm not the caregiver. I'm the funding." My voice didn't shake. It was flat, factual, the way I talk to a judge. "And I flew in because my mom begged me to come home for the holidays. She didn't mention this trip or childcare once." Sarah nodded slowly, scribbling something on her clipboard. "Okay," she said. "I'm going to check on the kids' rooms and the backyard. You're welcome to stay in the living room while I do that." As she moved down the hall, the kids trailing behind her like a little confused parade, I caught the youngest one's eye and gave him a small smile. None of this was their fault. They'd just been born into a family that treated people like resources instead of relationships. A nasty thought slithered up the back of my mind. If I really disappeared tomorrow, if I blocked their numbers, shut off the money, got a new email and never looked back. What would they do with these 4 little humans they'd counted on me to absorb? Leave them with whoever answered the phone? Drag them along resentfully while they chase the next distraction? Or, worst of all, actually have to grow up and parent? Jenna's nails dug into her phone case. "You are sick," she whispered. "You called CPS on your own family." I met her glare, feeling something inside me finally harden instead of bend. "No," I said. "I called CPS for your kids." The air in the living room went heavy and sour while Sarah's footsteps creaked overhead. Karen paced behind the couch like a caged animal, muttering, "This is going to go on our record. Do you understand that, Olivia? This could ruin everything. Do you want them to take the children?" "If you're doing everything right, no one's taking anyone," I said, though a part of me knew that for the first time in their lives, someone other than me had leverage over them. Jenna rounded on me, eyes wild. "You think you're some kind of hero because you pay a few bills? You don't have kids. You don't understand, okay? Your life is brunch and emails and fancy shoes. Ours is diapers and homework and no sleep. You're the one with all the free time and money. Of course you should help. That's literally your job as the successful one." The words hit like a slap, but not because they were new, because they were finally said out loud. That was the core belief under every guilt-trippy phone call and passive-aggressive must-be-nice text. I let the silence stretch for a long 3 seconds, then felt my mouth curve into a smile so cold it scared even me. "You're right," I said softly. "It has been my job, because I let it be. But jobs can be quit." Karen stopped pacing. "Don't you dare talk like that, after everything we did for you." "Like what?" I snapped, the calm cracking for just a moment. "Like letting me work 2 part-time jobs in high school while you spent my savings on a new SUV? Like pushing me to take out more student loans because lawyers make bank, and then calling me ungrateful when I wouldn't open a credit card in your name? Or like this week, when you flew me out here under the lie of family Christmas just so I could be your unpaid nanny while you went to Colorado on my dime." Karen's face mottled. "We were going to pay you something," she insisted weakly. "Yeah," I shot back. "Before or after the lift tickets? Before or after the spa day you booked?" Jenna grimaced. "How would you even know that?" Her phone was still in her hand, the resort app open in the background. I tilted my head. "Because, like I told you, I've been paying the card you used. And when I see a $2,400 charge labeled Summit Ridge Spa and Lodge on an account that's supposed to be for groceries and bills, I look into it." Jenna's voice rose to a shriek. "You had no right to cancel that trip or touch those flights." "They were in my name," I said. "Paid with my card, my miles, my credit score. You stopped opening your own statements a year ago, remember? Too stressful. So I logged in. I consolidated. I refinanced. I became the adult while you all played victim." I reached into my carry-on and pulled out a thin folder I'd tucked there before boarding at JFK. "This," I said, laying it on the coffee table, "is every payment I've made for you in the last 3 years. Mortgage, electric, water, internet, car. Even the stupid streaming services so you could binge reality TV while telling me you couldn't afford shoes for the kids." Jenna snatched the top page. Her eyes skated over the numbers. $1,800, $600, $320, month after month after month. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. This can't be right," she whispered. "You make it look so bad." "Numbers are neutral," I said. "They just are what they are." Somewhere above us, a kid laughed at something Sarah had said, a bright, oblivious sound that cut across the tension like a bell. Karen seized on it. "See? They're happy. They're fine. You blew this way out of proportion." I leaned back against the wall, feeling strangely steady. Happy kids don't erase unpaid mortgages, I said. They don't erase unsafe choices. They don't erase the way you've turned me into an ATM with a pulse. Jenna's face twisted. You love throwing that word around. ATM. You know what you really are? Bitter. You couldn't find anyone to have kids with, so you punish me for having a family. That one landed in the softest part of me, the place where my quiet fear of ending up alone lives, curled up and ashamed. I felt it flinch, and then I felt it burn away. There it is, I said, almost pleasantly. The line you've wanted to say for years. You don't have kids, so your life doesn't count. My voice dropped. Thank you for finally being honest, Jenna. It makes this next part so much easier. Her bravado faltered. What next part? I didn't just cancel your trip, I said. 3 weeks ago, I stopped the automatic mortgage payments. Your lender sent a very polite letter to this address, which I'm guessing is still unopened on the kitchen counter under that pile of coupons. They'll give you a little grace period. Then the late fees start. A few months from now, if no one pays, the notices get less polite. Karen gasped, actually staggering back a step. You wouldn't do that to your own parents? I already did, I said. Yesterday, on my lunch break, I went down to my bank and signed the paperwork to remove my name from your loan. If you want to keep this house, you'll have to qualify on your own income and credit. That's fraud, Jenna spat. No, I said evenly. It's called no longer co-signing. Look it up. Jenna was shaking now. The van, she blurted. You co-signed for the van. The kids need... I reported the missed payments this morning, I cut in. The repo company will come at the end of the month unless someone brings the account current. They will not be calling me. Karen's hand flew to her mouth. The power, she whispered. The water. Olivia, you wouldn't... I already did that too, I said. The autopay is gone. Next week, if you don't put a card in your name on those accounts, the lights go off. The Wi-Fi dies. No more streaming. No more late-night shopping. No more FaceTime calls asking for just a little help until Friday. Karen's eyes filled with panic. No. No, no way. Please, she whispered, voice cracking on the last word, like she could rewind the clock with sheer desperation. Before I could answer, footsteps sounded on the stairs. Sarah appeared, the 4 kids behind her, calmer now, curious eyes bouncing between the adults. Thank you for your time, she said, businesslike. I've done an initial walkthrough. I'm going to leave you with a checklist of some safety concerns. Outlets that need covers, the gate on the pool that needs a proper latch, supervision issues that need addressing. This visit will go on file as a warning. I'll be back for a follow-up after the holidays. If things have improved, that'll be the end of it. If not, we'll have to look at other options. Jenna choked. Other options? Sarah met her gaze squarely. Support services, parenting classes, in extreme cases, placement with relatives or foster care. We're nowhere near that yet. But you need to understand this isn't a joke. Jenna's eyes darted to me, full of pure hatred. She planned this. She spat. She timed it. She wants to ruin us. Sarah lifted a hand. Right now, I don't care about your sibling dynamics, she said. I care about those 4 kids. And they need sober, present adults making safe decisions for them. Take the checklist seriously. That's all I'm going to say today. She handed Karen a stapled packet and walked to the door. The kids trailed after her, whispering. As the door clicked shut behind her, the last thin layer of pretense in that house went with it. For a second after Sarah left, nobody moved. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator and the distant bark of a neighbor's dog. Then Karen rounded on me. You have humiliated this family, she hissed. With that woman? With this money stunt? With everything? You think your fancy New York job makes you better than us? You think you can just walk in here and tear our lives apart because you're having a tantrum? I picked up my folder from the coffee table and slid it back into my bag. I didn't tear anything apart, I said quietly. I just stopped taping it together so you wouldn't have to see the cracks. The front door opened again, and my dad, Tom, stepped in, car keys in hand, sunglasses still on like he was mid-vacation already. "What's going on?" he demanded, taking in Jenna's blotchy face, Karen clutching the CPS checklist, my suitcase still parked in the entryway. "We're going to miss our flight." "We're not going anywhere," Jenna snapped. "Olivia canceled everything and called CPS on us." His head swiveled toward me, fists clenching. "Tell me that's not true." I met his stare, remembering the voicemail he'd left me last month when I told him I couldn't cover their property tax again. The way he'd snarled, "After everything we sacrificed for you, you can't even do this one thing?" "The resort is canceled. The flights are in my name now. CPS just left. And I've taken my name off your financial mess," I said. "All of that is true." He took a step closer, crowding into my space the way he used to when I was 16, and dared to push back. "We raised you," he growled. "We kept a roof over your head, food in your mouth. We didn't get help from anyone. And this is how you repay us? By trying to destroy us?" I laughed once, a flat, humorless sound. "You kept a roof over my head until I was old enough to keep a roof over yours," I said. "Then you handed me the bills and called it family teamwork. You know who actually helped? Me. While you pretended the pensions and disability checks were enough, and I watched collection notices pile up." Karen jabbed a finger at my chest. "You're the oldest," she snapped, finally saying the line I'd been waiting for. "That means something. It means you step up when family needs you. Your sister has 4 kids. Your father's back is ruined. My health isn't what it used to be. You don't get to opt out because you're tired. This is your responsibility." Something in me went very still. "No," I said. "It was my responsibility when I was a kid and had no choice. It was my responsibility when I was drowning in law school debt and still wiring you money because I couldn't stand the thought of the kids sitting in the dark. But I'm an adult now. I get to decide what I'm responsible for. And I am choosing myself." Jenna scoffed. "You're not choosing yourself. You're choosing revenge." I looked at her, really looked, at the dark circles under her eyes, the way her hand trembled on the CPS checklist. "Revenge would be calling Sarah back and telling her to come take the kids today," I said. "Revenge would be reporting every lie you've told on your benefits applications, every time you worked under the table and still collected aid. All I've done so far is step back and let your own choices catch up to you." Dad's face darkened. "You wouldn't dare," he said. "We need that help. We're entitled to it." "You're entitled to exactly what the program says you are," I replied, "and that's up to them to figure out." I thought of the online forms I'd filled out 3 months ago, the scanned copies of checks and bank statements I'd attached, the careful clinical language I'd used. Concern about misuse of funds in multi-adult household with dependent children. I hadn't hit submit out of anger. I'd done it out of exhaustion. No more being their shadow welfare program on top of the actual one. "You're the one who pushed this into official channels," I continued. "Not me. I just finally told the truth to someone whose job is to listen." Karen crumpled the CPS checklist in her fist. "You think they're going to help us more because you tattled?" she spat. "No," I said. "I think they're going to look at the full picture. The pensions, the disability, the housing assistance, the way Jenna doesn't work, but somehow always has new nails and a full bar cart. And then they'll decide if you still qualify. That's out of my hands now." Dad stared at me like he didn't recognize me. "Where are you even staying?" he demanded. "Here? After what you've done?" I weighed my answer. My new condo's keys were in my pocket, still shiny from the locksmith. I'd closed on it 6 weeks ago, scraping together a down payment from the crumbs left after everyone else's emergencies, I hadn't told a soul. The last time I mentioned maybe buying a place, Karen had immediately asked if there'd be a guest room for when we need a break. I was going to crash here for a couple nights, I said evenly. Furniture for my place gets delivered on Monday. His lip curled. Absolutely not. You don't get to burn the house down and then sleep in the ashes. You want to act like you're better than us now? Prove it from somewhere else. I glanced at Karen, half expecting her to protest, to say, Tom, she's still our daughter. She said nothing. Jenna's eyes were fixed on the floor. It was all so clear it was almost funny. As long as I paid, I belonged. The second I stopped, I was disposable. Got it, I said. No yelling, no tears. I grabbed my suitcase handle and rolled it back over the threshold I hadn't fully crossed. At the door, I paused and looked back at the three of them, huddled around a crumpled checklist and a canceled vacation like survivors of a storm they'd insisted wasn't coming. You're right about one thing, I said. I am the oldest. And for the first time in my life, I'm going to show you what it looks like when I make decisions for me. Then I stepped out into the bright, indifferent Arizona sun and pulled the door shut behind me. My new condo in Manhattan was the opposite of that Phoenix house in every way that mattered. Small, but entirely mine. Quiet, paid for with my own signature instead of someone else's crisis. When I unlocked it that night, dragging my suitcase over the threshold, the place still smelled like fresh paint and cardboard. No family photos, no stacks of unopened bills with my name on them, but someone else's guilt. I dropped my bag in the bedroom, sat on the bare mattress, and just listened to the silence. No TV blaring kids' shows, no toddler crying, no phone vibrating with emergency call me texts. For the first time in years, the only person I had to take care of was me. The next morning, I made bad drip coffee in a brand new machine and watched the city crawl awake from my 10th floor window. I expected my phone to stay mercifully still. In my head, I'd already accepted that Karen and Tom would spend the week telling anyone who'd listen that I'd lost it. Instead, around 11, my screen lit up with a name I never thought I'd see there voluntarily. Jenna. For a full minute, I just stared at it, letting it buzz. Then I answered. Don't hang up, she said immediately, voice small in a way I'd never heard. Please, I'm not calling to yell. Okay, I said cautiously. You've got 5 minutes. She let out a shaky breath. I'm sorry, she blurted. For everything. For the way we ambushed you. For Mom's "you're the oldest" speech. For that disgusting thing I said about you not having kids. She trailed off. In the background, I could hear cartoons and the clink of dishes, not the echo of an airport. We didn't go anywhere, she said quietly. Obviously. The kids cried for an hour. Mom's in her room with a migraine. Dad's been on the phone trying to get a friend to undo what you did with the mortgage. But apparently, that's not how it works. A grim, petty part of me that I barely recognized felt a flicker of satisfaction at that. Why are you really calling, Jenna? I asked. Because Sarah called back, she said. She said she's scheduling our follow-up sooner than she thought. Because of some additional information that came across her desk. I knew exactly what that additional information was. 2 weeks after I filed my anonymous concern with the housing office, an investigator had reached out for clarification. I'd given dates, amounts, the way my money covered gaps that shouldn't have existed if the stated income and assistance were accurate. They'd thanked me and said that given there were children involved, CPS would be looped in. She mentioned an audit, Jenna whispered now, of Mom and Dad's benefits, the disability, the housing vouchers. She said they'll be reviewing whether we've been honest about everyone's income and who actually lives here. And have you? I asked. Silence. Then. Mostly, she said, which meant no. Look, I know we've leaned on you too much. Okay? I know. I told Mom that last night. I told her we can't just expect you to catch us every time. Looking for a job. At a daycare, actually. They said they need someone after the new year. I'm trying. There it was again. That tiny part of me that still wanted to fix things to say, I'll cover you until you get your first paycheck. I strangled it in its crib. Good, I said instead. You should have done that 3 years ago. She sniffed. I know. I just needed you to know I heard you. And I'm scared. They took Dad's car this morning, Liv. Right out of the driveway, the kids watched. It was... She exhaled hard. This is the first time anything real has happened because we didn't listen. Mom keeps saying it's all your fault, but I know that's not true. We did this. We put you in this position. I stared out at the slush-covered street below. You didn't put me anywhere, I said slowly. I walked into it. Over and over. I wired the money. I answered the calls. I flew home when Mom cried. I canceled dates, vacations, and sleep for you. That's on me. This, I gestured around at my empty condo, is me finally stepping out of that role. So what now? Jenna whispered. We're just cut off? I could hear the terror in her voice, and under it, something else. The dawning realization that no backup plan was coming. What now as you figure it out? I said. You and Mom and Dad decide whether you're going to fix this or let it all fall apart. You parent your kids. You work. You talk to the caseworkers. You live within what you actually have, not what you can squeeze out of me. I hesitated. I'm not calling CPS back to ask them to go easy. I'm not calling the bank to put my name back on anything. I'm not wiring you a lifeline every time you feel uncomfortable. Those days are over. Jenna was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was steadier. Okay, she said. Okay. I hate it. I hate you a little bit right now if I'm honest, but I get it. She swallowed. If I send you a picture of the kids, will you at least look at it? That somehow hurt more than any accusation. Yeah, I said softly. I'll look. After we hung up, my phone buzzed again almost immediately. This time it was an unknown number from Arizona. I let it go to voicemail. When I played it back, my dad's voice filled the room, low and cold. If you think this is over, you're dumber than I thought, he said. You want to embarrass this family? Go ahead. But you don't get to walk away clean. You'll see. He hung up without another word. I sat there, listening to that threat dissolve into digital static, and instead of fear, I felt clarity. Dad wasn't used to losing control. Cutting off my money meant he couldn't use me as his personal disaster fund anymore, and that terrified him. If he wanted to escalate, he'd be doing it without my help, for the first time in decades. I opened my laptop, logged into my bank accounts, and with a few deliberate clicks, I canceled the last 3 recurring transfers. Groceries, cell phone plan, the miscellaneous fund I'd set up for Jenna's emergencies that had somehow turned into her fun money. Then I pulled up an email from a housing investigator I'd been ignoring for a week, asking if I had any additional documentation. I attached the scanned folder of payments, hit send, and sat back. A quiet, razor-sharp bridge had been built between my exhaustion and their consequences, and her name was Sarah Miller. By the last week of January, the dust had settled just enough for me to see the shape of my new life. My condo had furniture now, a couch I'd picked because I liked it, not because it was on clearance, a bed frame that didn't wobble, a small dining table with exactly 2 chairs because I didn't need more. I woke up to my own alarm instead of a 6 a.m. crisis call. My savings account, for the first time ever, stayed the same for an entire month. No mysterious withdrawals, just until payday. In Phoenix, everything was coming due at once. The benefits office had sent Karen and Tom a letter. We regret to inform you that your case has been selected for review. And Jenna texted a photo of it late one night. A single word underneath. Why? I didn't answer. The next image she sent, a week later, was of their driveway. No van, no sedan, just oil stains on the concrete. Beneath it, they took both. I put my phone face down and went back to highlighting a contract. A few days after that, a small envelope with no return address showed up in my mailbox. The handwriting on the front was painfully familiar, the loopy cursive that had signed every permission slip and every birthday card when I was a kid. My mom's. Inside was a check for $300 and a note on lined paper. "We're doing what we can," it said. "I know it's not enough." I didn't cash it. I slid it into a drawer with my passport and my condo deed, a tangible maybe in a box of definites. I wasn't interested in punishing them forever. I was interested in seeing if this sudden sense of accountability would last longer than their guilt usually did. In early March, my email pinged with a message from Sarah Miller. She thanked me for my cooperation, then outlined the results of the review in cool, bureaucratic language. Some benefits adjusted, others suspended pending repayment. Mandatory parenting classes for Jenna. Unannounced home visits scheduled for the next 6 months. "The children remain in the home at this time," she wrote. "There is significant room for improvement, but we have seen initial positive changes." Attached was a brief note. "I know this has been difficult. Your report likely prevented things from getting worse. Take care of yourself." 2 days later, Jenna emailed me a photo of the kids standing proudly in front of a small worn apartment complex, each of them holding a key on a colorful plastic ring. The caption read, "Our own place. Tiny, but ours. Thank you, even if you hate me." I stared at their faces. The missing front tooth, the crooked ponytail, the way the oldest stood slightly in front of the others like he'd appointed himself their shield, and felt something unclench. I didn't respond right away. I let a couple of weeks pass. Let my own reactions settle. Then, one evening as snow drifted past my window in lazy spirals, I snapped a picture of the Manhattan skyline from my living room, streaks of light cutting through the dark. I typed back, "No hate, just boundaries." That was it. No heart emoji, no "love you," no promise to visit soon. Just a line drawn clearly between their lives and mine. Karen hasn't called. Tom definitely hasn't apologized. Men like him don't. They wait for the world to bend back toward them, for the person who finally said no to eventually soften and say, "Fine, just this once." But I don't bend anymore. One night, sitting on my couch with a mug of tea, I realized I was laughing. Not at a show or a text, just at nothing. At the absurdity of how quiet my life had become. There was no dread in my chest when my phone lit up. Because half the people who used to drain me didn't have the new number. There were no surprise overdraft alerts because someone else's emergency had eaten my rent. There was just space, room to breathe, room to think about what I wanted, trips I might actually take, hobbies I might pick up. Maybe one day a family built on choice instead of obligation. People love to talk about loyalty, about blood and duty, and we're all we've got. But here's the question that keeps circling in my head when I look back at that Arizona doorway. What do you think happens when the person you've always treated as the backup plan, the safety net, the one who will always say yes, finally walks away and doesn't come back?